with any of these causes.
Vishwa's commitment towards zero waste and the long way to go in achieving the goal begins with our material donation drive. Conducted twice a year during Diwali and Ugadi in Hyderabad, this drive collects clothes, books, toys, and other used or semi-used items for the underprivileged. Contributions from over 615 plus families have benefited around 2,800 individuals, providing essential items and support, bringing hope and dignity to them. Through these efforts, we transform the waste of some into the treasure of others, promoting sustainability and community welfare.
Namaskaram. A very good morning and welcome to Vishwa Talks. My name is Trishant, and I thank you all for attending today's event on Zoom and to those watching on YouTube Live. For those of you who have attended a Vishwa Talk before, a warm welcome back. And for our new joinees, here's a little bit about us. Vishwa Talks is here to create awareness amongst people and to protect our social heritage and to let people make their own decisions. Here we invite and discuss, explore diverse opinions, different perspectives, various issues, problems, and their solution on various fields, including art and culture, healthcare, environment, education, and many more. Each webinar is an interactive session with a deeper understanding of the topic at hand. If you miss any part of the session or would like to go through the previous sessions, please visit our website or Vishwa Talks YouTube channel for a full library of past Vishwa Talks on various interesting topics. It is my utmost pleasure to introduce our speaker for today's Vishwa Talks. Apramita Deshpande is a speech pathologist and founder of Coblot Creative Labs, a story-led learning startup focused on language development, literacy, and social-emotional learning. With a background in neurogenic communication disorders, education, and design, she builds playful story universes that help children communicate better, navigate complex emotions, build confidence, and celebrate their unique voice. Her work combines the science of speech therapy with the art of storytelling to create tools for emotionally empowered learning. Coblot is a creative learning platform that uses storytelling, emotional intelligence, and imaginative experiences to help children navigate their emotions and develop literacy, language, and essential communication skills. The Coblot Monthly Story Program is a subscription-based learning journey for children aged 1.5 to 14 years, combining original South Asian-inspired stories, playful activities, and expert-backed parent support to build English communication skills, emotional intelligence, and creativity. Each month delivers 12 age-appropriate stories with audiobooks, 24 quick activities for language, reading, and SEL, with easy tips from speech therapy, psychology, and literacy research. Structured across 5 development levels, the program helps toddlers name feelings, supports early readers with rhythm and fluency, guides older children in empathy and conflict resolution, and inspires teens to explore identity, humor, and creative writing. As we dive into today's interesting discussion, I would like to inform the audience that our speaker will be taking questions from you after the main talk. So please leave your questions in the chat box or use the raise hand tool in the React section of Zoom, and we will allow you to ask your questions in person. I request everyone to turn on your webcam for the interactive part of the webinar. Request you to keep the questions concise and short. Please limit the interaction part to questions. You can share your experiences, opinions, and perspectives in the chat box. So without further ado, let's welcome Ms. Apramita Deshpande as she shares her inspiring journey and valuable insights into teaching boundaries through stories with Bibil the Fairy. Good morning.
Hello,
Hello.
good morning, and welcome to the webinar. And thank you, Trishant and Vishwa Talks, for this wonderful collaboration. And it's always been a pleasure to work with you all. And without further ado, let's start the webinar. Few pointers before I start the webinar. I'm a speech pathologist and not a psychologist. So I will be answering all the questions and all the interactions are limited to my field. Things like boundaries and concepts like boundaries are it, the concept kind of overlaps in both the fields. So it's also a topic of psychology and it's also a topic of speech pathology. So speech pathologists basically deal with the language of boundaries. We deal with assertiveness, scripting, and I personally deal with uh, creative ways to teach children about placing these boundaries, right? So that is a boundary that I've placed in the beginning of the session. Great example of how to place them. So boundaries aren't rude, they're just something, an invisible line that you place before you go forward for something. In this case, before I go forward in the webinar, I would like to place this boundary of what my field is and what kind of questions are encouraged. So yeah, so we can start with the presentation now. As always, I love to start presentations with a game. All right. I want to see how many of you all know your own personal boundaries before teaching your children what boundaries are, right? So let's see. Let's just comment in the chat, stop, go, or maybe, right? And we have 4 slides like these, and this is a game about your own personal boundaries. So a relative insists on hugging or kissing your child, even if your child looks uncomfortable. What do? Stop. Yes, go is yes, basically, right? Stop, go, or maybe. Yeah, everyone's saying stop. That's good, 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 good. This one's pretty easy. Yeah, in South Asian cultures, it's so common to, for relatives to pull kids' cheeks or give them a hug or a kiss, even if they don't really enjoy it. So, yeah, it's really important to place parental boundaries and talk to the relative as well uh, before they even take such an action. For you to place the best boundary would be, telling your relatives and friends about what's good with your child and what's not good, right? So yeah, can I have the next slide, please? Yes, this is also interesting. It's a child that is dealing with another child. So another child takes your child's favorite toy without asking, stop, go, or maybe. There are no right or wrong answers. We're all here to learn. Yeah, Trishant says maybe. Yeah, I'm also in the maybe category. Yeah, a lot of people are saying stop or maybe. Interesting. So I personally, I would say maybe it's because I want my kid to deal with their own issues, right? I want my kid to say stop. Um, I might not intervene and say stop to another kid unless something really bad is happening, right? Yeah, so that's my lookout. But yeah, if you have a really sensitive child and you know your child best, so it's your decision if you want to stop this or if you want to kind of pause and wait and see what happens and how your child reacts. All right. Next slide, please. Someone says first let them play, then intervene after seeing how they respond. All right, so this one's very common, especially in the country that we live in. We a lot of people offer us unsolicited advice on how to parent. So so if your child is having a tantrum, right, in the supermarket, and someone is giving you unsolicited parenting advice, what would you do? Maybe. Okay. Interesting. Maybe. Mm-hmm. Stop. Yeah, it kind of depends on the context. Smile sheepishly, maybe. That's interesting. Yeah. With the kind of person I am, I might just like stop and ask them to mind their own business. Like that, but that's my lookout. Sometimes people are, really helpful too. Um, they're not overly aggressive when it comes to these advices. So maybe sometimes if the person seems nice, I might just listen, or ask for a helping hand. But yeah, sometimes ignore, sometimes. Yeah, one cannot be uncivilized. Well, honestly, placing boundaries, or like if someone wants to say stop, that's not uncivilized. Or like a child having a tantrum is also not uncivilized. It's a child who is having a tantrum. So it's okay if the child has a tantrum. A lot of kids do. And I'm sure, like, at one point, even we had a tantrum when we were outside. Because I remember when my mom took me out for vegetable shopping, I would be so cranky. And I'd always be like, I want to go home. I want to go home. So kids don't have the same patience levels as us. All right. Next one. Oh, yeah. So that's the end of the game. I just wanted to gauge. And you all did really well. And it's going to be pretty easy from here on. And if you've attended the previous session on naming your emotions and affect labeling, it's going to be a really cool session because this builds up on that. But then if you haven't attended it, I've also added a few slides to just to revise. So yeah, boundaries. The Psych Central says that personal boundaries are simply lines that we draw for ourselves in terms of our level of comfort around others, and our level of comfort might be different from everyone else, right? I might like something that somebody hates. So boundaries are very subjective and they're very personal. Okay, and there are many different kinds of boundaries. Let's go to the kinds of boundaries so that we understand using examples. The next screen. Okay, so the types of boundaries are physical. So I don't want to be hugged. Please stay back. This is the most important boundary you have to teach your child in this day and age of internet and um, stranger danger. You have to teach your child physical boundaries, like their consent. If they don't want to be touched, if they don't want somebody to put their arm around them, even kids blur each other's boundaries, physical boundaries. So you have to strongly teach them physical boundaries, and teach them about bodily autonomy, that your body is yours, and nobody can touch you without your permission. So it's something that even I'm learning, because when my niece came home, she's so cute, and she's my niece, and it is like we are family. But then I had to stop myself to ask her, "Hey, Mira, can I hug you? Mira, can I kiss you?" Like I stopped myself from just like doing the act before asking her, and she's like 5 years old. So yeah, I asked for Mira's consent, and if I didn't know about boundaries, I think I wouldn't have done that. So yeah, when you ask for consent, children also know that, okay, like this is my body and they're asking for my permission. So they have this sense of control over their own boundaries. And then, like, when they go to school and stuff, they expect the same behaviors that, okay, nobody, like, my Masi is not touching me without my permission. So maybe my friend can't do it either, right? So, and there are many songs about this, like if you've heard a very popular song like "Please Stop, I Don't Like That, I'm Feeling Uncomfortable, and I Need More Space." And it also says, "Don't take it personally, it's just a boundary, it's just a boundary." So it's a very cool little song that got really popular on Instagram. Yeah, so physical boundaries, I stayed for so long is because I want you all to teach your kids physical boundaries. Emotional boundaries, yes, I need my space. I'm not ready. So even if your child has a tantrum, for example, and they don't want to talk to you, don't force them, right? Maybe give them some space to cool off, cool down, play with their toy for some time. So that's emotional boundaries for them. If you are feeling really overwhelmed as a parent and your child is needs you, and it's a constant they're constantly asking for your attention, you can also place a boundary. You can say, like, "Mama or Papa is not feeling okay at this time, so can we do this in the evening, or can I get like a few minutes to just rest and do my own thing?" Right? So you can also place emotional boundaries with your kids, so that they know how to do it. This process in speech pathology is called modeling. And modeling is basically when a parent shows their child how to do something, um, not just through role play, but also through a real, authentic, lived experience of placing boundaries, right? So when the child sees you placing a boundary, they also learn that they can place boundaries, and they learn how to respect respect other people's boundaries. A very nice example, Soumya, I don't know if she's here, Ranadira's mom. She sent me a very nice picture of Ranadira had drawn uh, his mom having lunch, and his mom enforced a boundary where, okay, this is an invisible line, and when I'm eating, I don't want to be disturbed, right? So he doodled the entire thing, and I thought that was so incredible. Like, yeah. So it's not rude for you to place a boundary with your child. When you're eating, it's your personal time. If you need space just to eat by yourself, you can place an invisible line. Yes, mental. Yes, I don't like that. I disagree. So mental is basically about opinions. If someone has a different opinion than yourself, you can disagree. You don't always have to agree to somebody else's opinion. So because that's how we grow and develop. If we all had the same opinion, the world would be a very weird place. There would not have been any diversity of opinions. Wouldn't have been growth. So, and it would become an echo chamber. So, even with your kids, don't teach them to be agreeable. Teach them to have their own opinions, and also respect other people's opinions. Yeah. Time boundaries, yes, it's also very important for kids. Like, this is not the time to play, it's time to study, or okay, I'm done studying, it's time to play, I need a break. Breaks are also very important. So this is something that I really need help with, because I don't give myself breaks and I really burn out too soon. So give yourself breaks. Even like parents, please give yourselves breaks. Teach your kids how to take breaks for themselves. Don't make them study all day. They do that enough at school. Yeah, materials. Yes, possession of materials. There's a lot of discourse on sharing toys, sharing everything with your friends or siblings. But some things, if your child is saying, okay, this is mine and I want this for myself, like if it's a toy or something, even like a TV show, uh, respect that, because that's how they build their own identity. Like even material possessions are really important for identity building. So respect that. When you respect it, they learn sharing better. It's actually the other way around. Yeah. All right. All right. Can we have the next slide, please? Yes. So what happens when kids don't place boundaries? Difficulty saying no, confusion about personal space and consent, low self confidence, trouble managing emotions, and poor conflict resolution skills. You would also see a lot of tantrums in kids who have more of like a fight response. You'd see tantrums. You'd also see like extreme shyness, low self esteem, in kids who don't place boundaries. Because something interesting that I read was, when you place boundaries, it kind of activates the reward center of your brain. So when a child ignores their own boundaries, uh, they're not rewarded in any ways. So they feel a sense of low self confidence, low self worth, that okay, I'm having to agree to like what other people are doing. I don't have my own personal space or boundaries. So it can lead to a low sense of self worth and self esteem. Yes. Next slide. Yes. This is always my favorite part. And I want to tell you all what happens in the brain when you place a boundary, so that we know that this has evidence. So anything that I bring in these topics is always evidence based. There's a lot of research on it, and researchers from every field, not every, I'm exaggerating, researchers from many fields like sociology, psychology, speech pathology, they've all studied this, and neuroscience even. So I always like to see it from three to four different angles, and neuroscience is my favorite, because it gives you the tools to identify it in your own brain and basically like experiment it right away, right? So what happens in the journey of placing a boundary? Okay, so your amygdala is kind of the alarm system of the brain, right? So whenever a problem happens, it goes beep 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 beep. Right? And it's a big alarm system, and if you don't pause, you might just react. It activates your 4F responses. 4F is fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Okay, fight is you retaliate, throw a tantrum, say something that you didn't mean. Okay, then second is flight. You flee the situation, just leave that person, leave that situation, which sometimes is good. If you're in an unsafe situation, it's better to flee. But yeah, another thing is, um, I'd like to point out, uh, this is like a professional seminar, so I want you all to sit on a table or something. Like, I don't want parents lying around, just one. Because if I see that, I get a bit distracted. So, yeah, spot the problem. If something goes wrong, your brain's alarm system goes beep, 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 and you hit the 4F responses. To turn off the alarm system, what do? You name your feelings. And that's what we learned the last time is affect labeling. Once you name your feelings, like, okay, I feel scared, I feel overwhelmed, I feel defeated, right? Your alarm system kind of turns off. Okay, so pause and check your feelings. Alarm system turns off. Okay, there is also a part of the brain, insula, which senses body signals like tight chest, palpitations. You know, it's like fast heartbeats. Sometimes your hands are shaky. All these physiological signs get registered, right? All right. Then, yes, the hippocampus, which is the memory center of the brain, remembers past experiences of placing boundaries. So, when you teach your kid about boundaries or when you place boundaries, their hippocampus stores this as a memory, right? And then it's a lot easier for kids to repeat it. And the more you do it, the more it gets reinforced in their brain. And the time taken to place a boundary is reduced significantly if their brain already knows how to do this, right? It's like a brain gym, muscle building, right? Yeah, then make a choice. Yes, so once your alarm system is off, like amygdala you shouldn't always rely on your amygdala for reactions. You always need to pause and reflect and just affect name your emotions. Affect labeling is naming your emotions. Affect is emotions. Okay, so once you name your emotions, the your prefrontal cortex that is responsible for your logical reasoning, thinking, and processing, it comes back to its senses, right? So your cognition gets better because if you just stay in that 4F response, you tend to react more than respond, right? But then once you do all of this, uh, your prefrontal cortex gets back and the language part also gets back, and you're able to place boundaries better, right? You're able to make a decision of what boundary to place, and then like you're able to place it, and then the reward system of the brain like releases dopamine when the body works, or like when the boundary works, if it works, because there's a nuance here. It's not a linear process. We'll learn that. Let's move on to our next slide. Yes, so just a quick revision of how the amygdala works and where the prefrontal cortex is. When the amygdala gets activated, it's a very small part of the brain, but it just does so much. It doesn't do harm. Like if you're able to recognize that, okay, like there is a problem that's happening, amygdala is really good for that. What is not good is staying in that 4F response. That's not good. That's why we need to pause and think about our emotions, right? So regaining control and self-awareness is very important. So yeah, next slide. All right, so a little example of affect labeling, and we do it at Coblot, in our Coblot stories, with the library of emotions. So kids don't know all these technical terms of affect labeling and stuff, right? And this is a skill that is really important for kids. So we do it through stories, and all our characters go through this emotion library whenever like a situation happens, an overwhelming situation happens. We represent what they are feeling, and you can feel different things at the same time, right? So this is my sister Eva. This character, baby Eva, is based on my little sister. And this is a real story. That blue female elf is me, and on the right is my older cousin Anirudh. And yeah, this is a story called Appu Goes to Paper Town. And what we would do always when we would vacation in Paper Town, Bhadravati, is that we would just leave my baby sister, and she was just 2 or 3 years old at the time. And we would leave her and go for an ice cream or go do something fun. And she would always want to join us because for her, we were so cool, right? Like all the older siblings are very cool for younger siblings. It's just that we don't understand how they see us. We don't want them to hang out with us. So this is an emotion that my sister felt a lot of times in her childhood, because she communicated that once we grew up. She felt left out because she wanted to be taken. Um, she wanted to join the fun, then longing, and she basically says, I want to go on the adventure too. And she used to be really angry. She used to scream, and this is exactly her face when she used to scream, all red. And yeah, so she would get really angry and complain and tell my mom or my auntie. So yeah, this is what baby Eva went through. This is her library of emotions. So this is basically how we teach through stories how to label your emotions, so that they have a context, they have a situation, and you can also ask them, okay, is was there a time when you felt like this, when your didi or bhaiya left you at home? You can personalize the experience of the story, so they empathize with the characters, and they empathize with themselves too. Okay, next slide. So this was affect labeling. Okay, this one, narrative based language intervention, is a very niche speech therapy technique, and I've made an entire program out of this. So, because we've done this a lot in schools. When I was studying in Manipal, we used to go to schools and use this technique. So, what this technique is about, and I'm going to get a little technical because I want you all to also get technical with this. Once you understand the language of why we use these stories and the anatomy of it, it becomes very easy for you to replicate it at home. So you need to see the structure of the story, right? It's called a macro structure, right? And in that structure, in this particular example of teaching boundaries, the structure is problem, identifying the problem, naming feelings, planning it out, and then a consequence. Okay, so let's see how it applies to Bibil the fairy. By the way, this little gullible character is Bibil the fairy. We have an entire story about her. It's very cute. Yeah. Yes. So story grammar or macro structure is basically dividing the story into different parts. So in this case, there is a problem, there's a conflict, there is something that the character is feeling, and then there is some planning, and then there is a consequence. I've also added two other um, okay, I'm forgetting the word, but I've also added a context as to where and when. Like in Baby Eva's story, it was Paper Town Bhadravati. So it gives them a context, and it's more immersive there, right? Because they know that, okay, where this took place. And then there is an ending, so that gives them closure. right? So I've added two extra parts to the structure. Yes. Next one. All right. So let's do an example. So if a child, another child, in this case it's a dragon, if another child tries to steal Bibil's toy, she pauses and feels her emotions. She feels sad, and then she says, "Stop." Okay, and because she doesn't want the other child to take her toy. This is like the most basic structure of a boundary. But in especially in our sociological context of India, it's not this linear. Okay, the consequence is not always the other person respecting your boundary. Um, all right, next slide, because we'll see that in the next slide. Yes, in the Bibil story, 100 grasshoppers infest her home. Okay, they come just uninvited, and she just lets them stay. And now they've taken over her home. They basically like use it for yoga. At 6 a.m. in the morning, they wake up and do the grasshopper dance. Okay, and Bibil feels all the emotions. She feels angry, she feels so frustrated, sad, and she feels resentful. And something that my colleague Chirag, he came up with a brilliant idea for an illustration, that, or not just an illustration, but a concept. When Bibil is not able to place these boundaries with the grasshoppers, she thinks in her mind, the perception of the grasshoppers is evil, like evil creatures who are trying to do her so much harm. But in reality, grasshoppers are not thinking too much. They just have a lovely space and they're enjoying it. Because Bibil is not placing any boundaries, they're like, okay, this is our home now. So then Bibil tries a couple of times to place boundaries. So in real life, you have to try out a bunch of different options. It won't work in the first time, right? So she first comes with a go home sign and says, go home. They don't take her seriously. They're like, we'll go after some time, right? Then she tries to lure them. She says, okay, here are some please leave cookies. And the grasshoppers perceive it as, oh wow, we will bake us cookies. So it's gonna be a few more days of living here because she loves us. She baked cookies, right? So it doesn't work. So that's why I've written fail and then double fail with the cookies. All right. So this is how the boundary placing works, right? Your relative, when you place these boundaries of, your child not wanting to be hugged, your relative might say, oh, like, what is that? This is something new that's come up. In our times, we used to hug everyone. We used to like be so physically affectionate with kids. These are some new rules that you're coming up with. We don't want to follow this. So you have to be creative with how you place these boundaries. It's not every time that even your kids friends would follow boundaries. Not everyone respects other people's boundaries, so you have to try it differently with different people. Some people might respect your boundary when you're very assertive, like, stop, no, I don't want that. No, that is a boundary that some people need, right? And some people need a lot of explanation that, see, like, my child really doesn't want to get hugged. Like, this is, you can also add an example that the other day when somebody hugged her, she just cried for a few hours. and it was really difficult to stop her from crying. So she gets really uncomfortable. So then, this is how in our sociological context, a lot of psychologists say that we should place boundaries in a way where other people understand and other people can empathize with us. So there's like a lot of over explaining in our socio cultural context. All right, next one. Yes. So once you've identified the structure, the problem and context, problem, uh, emotion library, naming your emotions, and then a consequence, placing boundary and a consequence, you co-construct a few stories. Like after you've read that story, construct another story with your child. It can also be based on your child's personal experience. Okay, like what happened after your friend took your toy? Like, so the problem becomes the friend taking the toy, and then placing boundary becomes, okay, I told her to give it back. You can also add the question of, and you should add, not can, you should add the question of, how did you feel when your child took the toy? So follow the same macro structure of the previous story. So Rishan, can you go back to that macro structure so that they like are reminded of it?
Rakesh, go back.
Yeah, go back, go back, back. Yes, back, back. Yes, this one. This is the story microstructure, the story grammar, that as we call it. Not like grammar with the punctuations or past tense, tense. This is a syntax or the grammar of a story, basically parts of the story, the structure of the story. Okay. So, yeah, so this is what you need to remember in boundary placing: problem, feelings, plan, consequence. Just these four things. And then you can make up your own stories based on this structure. Okay. Yes. Next one. Yes. Personal narrative practices. Yes. Has something like this happened to you? So just like the previous one, in the previous one, there's more focus on the structure. So you have to reconstruct a story that's similar to the Bibil story, like a problem, feeling, placing boundaries, plan, and consequence. So focus on the structure. The next method is to ask personal questions, like, has something like this happened to you? you know has someone invaded your personal space? Because I remember, it's a little embarrassing to say, but I wouldn't respect my friend's boundary when she would say, okay, it's time to go home now. I would just hang out at her place all the time. So I had problems with these boundaries. So maybe I was like the grasshopper just infesting her home. And whenever she needed to study, she'd get angry at me, and I wouldn't know why she was angry at me. I was like, yeah, you study. I'm just here chilling, right? So yeah, I was in eighth standard, like 13 years old. Uh, so we weren't taught much about these boundaries and stuff, and we didn't have very strong boundary placing at our home. So I never knew how to respect other people's boundaries of space and time, right? So yeah, so you can ask these personal questions, like how I answered a personal question, a narrative of, me being me relating to the grasshoppers. You can ask your friend, you can ask your child the same question. Yes. Next one. Again, use the same macro structure. Follow all the parts of the macro structure. So to make it uh, like really technical, and for your child to uh, like really grasp the concept very well. So if you follow that, it gets well reinforced in their brain. Role play and retell, you can create characters, or you can act like these characters. You can become the grasshopper, and you can ask your child to be Bibil. And through dialogues, you can try and place boundaries. Like Bibil can try and place boundaries, the grasshoppers can try and understand Bibil's perspective. So you can do it through dialogues, right? And you can also ask some open-ended questions during the role play to reinforce that concept. All right, so it's 11:45. I think we are done with all the concepts of the story, like how to use narrative-based interventions with Bibil the Fairy. And yeah, I'm open for questions if you have them.
Thank you so much, Aparmita, for that wonderful PPT. Just a moment, there's a plane flying over my head. Okay, I hope my audio is clear.
Yes.
So before we move on to the Q&A, I'd like to just take 30 seconds of your time for a quick poll. This will help us get to know you better and tailor future topics that we bring to you. A big thanks to everyone here today. Your presence and participation means a lot to us, and it makes this webinar a success. While you fill out the poll, I also want to extend my heartfelt thanks to our esteemed speaker, Ms. Pramita Deshpande, for sharing her valuable time and insights and this wonderful presentation with us. Okay, before we move on to the Q&A, I request all the participants to quickly participate in the poll so that we can move on to the Q&A faster. Also, Apramita has shared a WhatsApp community link with me, which I'm going to share in the chat box. You can save the link and join the community of Coblot and kindly share it with everyone you know.
Nice.
Yeah.
A lot of people have said very recently your child plays.
When was the last time your child clearly said no to something they didn't like? That's the first question. And about 64% people, that's 7 out of 11 people answered very recently. 1 out of 11 said a few weeks ago, that's 9%. I request everybody to please participate in the poll quickly. 27% people are not sure. Second question is, which boundary skill do you feel your child struggles with the most? The first option is speaking up when uncomfortable. 36% people have opted to choose that. Respecting others, no, as a second option. 27% people, that's 3 out of 11, have selected that. The third option is expressing feelings clearly. About 36% people have selected that option. Third question is, okay, I'm going to end the poll and we can move on to the Q&A. You might be able to see the results of your poll on your screen right now. There's a guest asking how to contact. We will be sharing the PPT along with Coblot's email address to you via your registered email ID. You can reach out via mail to Apramita. Also, you can reach out to us. There's a guest asking, I'm already in Club 2. Should I join Club 3 too?
No, Just one club. Be in one club. That's enough. How to set.
Okay, we've got our first question from Mr. Shmuel. I'm going to unmute Mr. Shmuel. Just a moment, sir. Oh, yes.
You hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Hi.
Thank you very, Hi. Thank you very much on very interesting and insightful and knowledgeful presentation. And I want to ask you a question. How, according to your opinion, we can teach boundaries children with mental health disabilities and mental health disorders?
Yes, that's a very interesting question because children who have
Thank
disabilities, yes, it depends on what kind of disabilities because we have different strategies for different kind of disabilities and different mental health issues as well. But I'll tell you like a general concept with children who have disabilities, especially autism or ADHD, their prefrontal cortex is well, it has some really gifted skills, but it also develops late, right? So they need more reinforced learning. So creative ways of teaching these concepts through stories and doing it every day is an intervention strategy that we use in speech therapy, right? So in speech therapy, we call it social stories. So we use social stories a lot with autistic kids for them to understand the context. So kids who have autism don't understand context very well, right? They act and behave the same way in all kind of contexts. So they need to be taught the difference between different contexts. So context is very important with kids who have autism. Yeah, that was my answer. That was my experience with disabilities, and I'll share my own experience.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shmuel, for joining us. Okay. I'm going to move on to the next question.
Yeah.
The next question is from Ms. Deepika Ravjini. How to set boundaries with teenagers? They have a mind of their own, and sometimes crossing lines can create uncomfortable talks between us. So it becomes difficult for them to understand.
True. That's very true. With teenagers, if you go and teach them, it comes off as preaching. So, yeah, it gets a bit difficult with teenagers. But what I'd suggest is try and understand, like, try and put yourself in their shoes. Think of your own teenage when you were a teenager, and when you empathize with them about their situation, because teenage and like hormonal shifts are so prevalent, and like a lot of teenagers are prone to anxiety disorders or mood disorders, right? Because it's just they're going through a hormonal shift, right? So a little bit of empathy from your end is also required, that all, yes, and then like, yes, and they're growing up in an era that is extremely different to us. Like when we grew up, we did not have Instagram. We might have had Facebook, but we weren't on Instagram all the time. We didn't have like Snapchat, or our world was less virtual, and they live in a virtual world. So their world is very different. So, sort of an empathy and understanding of their world, their context is required, right? So you study their context, you study their problem, right? Because if you just teach your context and your problem, it will not work for them, right? So that's why, like, the kind of context and problem, empathizing with their context and their problem, it would be really important for you. Then your teenagers will think, okay, like my mom understands this, right? Or my dad understands this. Yeah.
Mm. All right. I'd like to also give a special mention to a speaker who's joined us, PG Bhatt. He's a professor from RVO University, and he's been a speaker for us a couple of times. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Okay, before I move on to the next question, I'm just quickly going to close this session officially, and then we can move on to the leftover Q&As. For that, I'm just going to mention about the two upcoming talks that we have in the successive weeks. We have Mr. Arvind Tharunsri. He's a director of Temple Adventures. He's a PADI master instructor. He's also disabled diving instructor. He's an underwater pollution activist. And he's going to be joining us with his daughter, who's also a tiny underwater pollution activist. And they're going to be talking about plastic pollution, marine life saving, and underwater cleanup. That's on 23rd August 2025, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Post that, uh, I have a friend. Actually, it's Apramita and my common friend, Mr. Chirag Chaudhary. He's a visual illustrator, founder of Lefty Media, also teaches in a couple of universities in Gujarat. He's going to be talking on how to cook a story. He is a wonderful illustrator, and you have to look out for the session on 30th August 2025 from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. With that, I officially close the session and I move on to the next.
Oh, wait. Before that, I'd like to add, Chirag also works, we also work together, and all the illustrations that you're seeing with Bibil, it's been guided by him.
Amazing.
So, yeah,
Great
our
to know that.
storytelling has really improved after I've started working with Chirag. So, you have to attend Chirag's session for sure.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question by Miss Divya Bhatt. How do we teach children to respect our boundaries?
Same. When you respect their boundaries, they will respect your boundaries. All right. Another thing is, there is not one simple way to teach boundaries. If you teach boundaries one day, they will not remember the next day. And that's why this narrative, narrative based intervention is so important, because when you talk about it more and more, it becomes easier for them to respect your boundaries and to respect their own boundaries. Once they start respecting their boundaries, it becomes easier for them to empathize with your own boundaries, to learn how to place boundaries and get to know about all their personal space and boundaries. You need to do it creatively through narrative processes that we talked about. So if you do it even for a week, if you read stories, and like identify boundaries in those stories, it will become really easy for your kid to respect your boundaries. Because see, like, if they don't know what a boundary is, how will they respect your boundary? So for that, you have to teach them how to place boundaries, and not teach or preach, but learn together. And when you learn together through narrative process, the narrative based intervention, it just becomes really easy to for them to grasp the concept. So once they've grasped the concept, they will start respecting your boundaries.
Thank you, Divya, for the question. Thank you, Apramita, for answering that question. I have a question from my side. So it's sort of personal but also professional. What kind of experiences led you to, say, creating Coblot and help solving communication problems amongst kids, say teenagers? What led you to it, and what was the pull that you had towards it?
Okay, so it's actually the problems in my life that came about because of not placing boundaries. I think I'm not good at placing boundaries at all. I'm a big people pleaser, and I've always been that way. I'm very giving, and I help everybody, and yeah, and I've faced a lot of problems because of that. Like, like even when I was in school, my mom used to tell me that you don't study for yourself, but you're going and helping your friend. So what kind of behavior is that? Like, you have to think about yourself, like you have to study your own material before helping others, right? So this has been a problem with me. So yeah, like that's why. And in general with Coblot, yeah, like a lot of experiences in speech therapy led me to create this, because what I saw in speech therapy was a lot of repetitive activities. Even in education, we have this culture in India of repeating the same things, and our discourse is mostly like memorize this, right? So I wanted to create something that's very creative and immersive, so that kids are immersed in that story and activity, and then it gets much better for them to uh, do the desired behavior. Like, because I have had so many calls from parents that my child throws a lot of tantrums. How do I deal with that? It's just becoming too overwhelming. So yeah, like the first thing that you need to do is, get them to know about their own emotions and their own bodies, and then like teach the act of placing boundaries. So yeah, these issues need a step by step process, and I didn't want to do it very technically in terms of research, or because if I would have gone and become a researcher, my research wouldn't have reached real people place, facing these problems. So that's why, through Coblot we work with the real parents who are facing this, and then like we see if our stories work for them or not. So yeah, so
Thank you.
this is the gist of how it happened.
Okay, so there's a question from a guest. Can you please tell me various stories based on specific themes? I'm not very clear about the question.
Yes.
Can you please tell me various stories based on specific themes?
Okay. Uh,
So I'd
okay.
like to
I
mention to
think
the guest that Coblot generally makes its own stories and illustrations to communicate to different age groups. So this is not relating anything to, say, Panchatantra or anything like that, which sort of helps you build moral values and stuff. This is more of a uh, emotional and practical learning process that happens on the go. So
mhm. Yeah.
I hope that answers your question. Sorry, I
Yeah.
can't place your name because it shows guest to me. There's another guest asking uh, a question. So first, do we ourselves need to decide the boundaries? Then you have to teach the children about them? No, right? I mean, you have to let them learn about their boundaries. So
Yeah.
it's like we can't be placing it for them. Certain things we can tell
Yeah.
them what are wrong and right, and they can decide for themselves like the way they place the boundary. I don't know. I don't know. You're the expert. Please tell us.
Well, boundaries are very subjective. Something that you might not like, maybe your child likes that, you know. And it's hard to match everything to parents' values. See, in India, we have this culture that okay, I will learn this first and I will teach my kid. So we have to move away from the instructional learning, and this is not even learning, this is feeling. You have to feel first. You have to let your child feel their own feelings, and you feel your own. And it's scary. I'm like, it's easier said than done. It's scary for a parent to understand that their child has different emotions than them, or like their child is different from them, or like they're not like their child. Your child and you can be completely different personalities, and it's scary, and I can completely understand. But yeah, for your child to develop their own identity, they need to know what their boundaries are. So you don't have to teach, you have to facilitate and create a space for your child to learn themselves, learn from themselves, learn from stories, and learn from themselves. So, yeah.
Thank you, Pramita. With that, I think we have covered all of the questions in the chat box. And thank you so much for your time and patience. I'd like to thank all of the participants who are there. I think there's about 30 people, 25 people who are still with us. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining us and kindly share this webinar with ones who really need it. I'm going to first post Coblot's Instagram page in the chat box. I'm also going to post um, the YouTube link for this particular webinar so that you can share it conveniently via WhatsApp or anything. Just give me a moment for that. Yes, here we go. Here's the YouTube link of the live recorded session of this particular session. You can share it. If you missed any part of the session, you can also go back and see the whole PPT. We will also share the PPT and Coblot's contact details with you, email details with you via your registered email ID. Thank you for joining us, and I request Apramita to kindly join the breakout room link that you will see on your screen shortly, and we can have the post-meeting discussion over there. Thank you to all the people who've joined us today. I hope to see you next week again. Thank you again.
Thank you, everyone, and bye bye. See you.